Amazing Spider-Man number 5 from Marvel Comics wraps up Spider-Man's trippy adventure when the Hobgoblin's plan to poison the city becomes clear, leading to a final battle at Rand Industries. What is this magical plan? Let's talk about it in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. You know, after reading Amazing Spider-Man number 5, oh boy. I don't know, folks. I don't know. It's not looking good. I think the first reaction I had after reading this issue is, that's it? Yep, that's pretty much it. It's just going to be, wow, that's the way you're going to end this particular arc? Yep, that's the way it ends. Joe Kelly's build-up around a mysterious plan amounts to nothing more than, to be blunt, a pharmaceutical scam that was executed with all the competence of an elementary school stage play. I mean, it's a dopey plan with a dopey way of going about it. Wow. To get the gist of what I mean, let's talk about the pros and cons, starting with the positives. This has more to do with the art than the writing. Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz wrap up the inaugural arc on the series with a fantastic slugfest against one of Spider-Man's greatest villains. I mean, truly, the fight looks gorgeous and is fantastic, and Larraz's art is phenomenal. That is absolutely the highlight of this issue. The fight is well done, it's well choreographed, and the major threat of the story, to Joe Kelly's credit, is wrapped up, but there's a lot of, shall we say, leftovers that don't get addressed. And that brings us to the negatives, which unfortunately is a much longer section. Joe Kelly stops Hobgoblin's plan, so that's a positive, but it wasn't a very good one, and it leaves several threads open. Let's talk specifically about the plan. The whole idea here, and we'll get to the synopsis, we'll give you more detail about how it works. Essentially what's happening is Hobgoblin is poisoning the city with this anxiety-inducing drug that he puts in sodas. And the idea here is he would sell to the public this medication that would help with anxiety. It's essentially creating a problem and then selling the solution at the same time. Okay, that's fine, sort of, but why not just poison the city water? I mean, that comment was explicitly made in a prior issue, but it never really got a good answer on it. The way you're doing it here is you're leaning on a slow deployment through cans of cola that people may or may not drink. Hobgoblin is planning that this outcome will make him a lot of money, but it's so unpredictable. Plus, when folks start feeling bad after drinking the cola, they're just going to stop buying it. So how did he think this was a good plan in the first place? Okay, so let's put the plan aside for a second and talk about the resolution. What happened to all the villains? We get Hobgoblin and Itsy Bitsy working together for some reason, but why did Hobgoblin need Itsy Bitsy in the first place? She's unstable, she's dangerous, and she's wholly unnecessary for this plan to work. And then what happened to Itsy Bitsy when the fight ended? We see her get sort of webbed up and left back at the warehouse where they're boxing up all the colas, but we don't hear anything after that. Nothing comes of it. She just sort of fades away into the story. And then after the big fight in this issue, which concludes the arc basically, what happens to Hobgoblin? He just flies away. Now we'll get to the details, he's sort of messed up a little bit, but he just sort of flies away. Is anybody going to chase him down? Is he going to get arrested? How is Hobgoblin so functional after receiving some, hallucinatory payback of his own, so to speak, when Spidey could barely hold himself up from the anxiety drugs? He just sort of goes away and that's it. Everybody just sort of shrugs and acts like it's a happily ever after. In short, you've got a bad plan with bad execution, unnecessary side characters, and an unsatisfying ending because you've got all these open threads that just don't get resolved and they're sort of ignored. If this is what we have to look forward to, ASM fans may be better off just sitting out the Joe Kelly era because this first arc is not a winner. Let's switch gears and talk about probably the one and only major reason to get this comic, and it's a doozy. We're talking about the art. The art is, and I mean this as a pun, but truly it is the case, the art is amazing and absolutely too good for the story that's presented. Pepe Larraz's visual, captivating style combined with Marta Gracia's meticulous coloring comes off as a work of art, especially on the splash pages. There are a few of them, not a lot of them, but there are at least more than a few to kind of get you excited about the visuals. Truly, the quality and the detail and the framing and the character designs and the figure work, we're very close to Alex Ross levels of quality. This is excellent work, and I wish we could get this kind of art delivery on every Marvel comic. Alright, so let's dig into the story, but how about we start with a recap from Amazing Spider-Man number 4. Spider-Man battled Hobgoblin at the Queen's Cola distribution warehouse. Spidey was hobbled by hallucinations after being drugged, and they mostly focused on his teenage years with Uncle Ben and Aunt May, depicting him as kind of a troubled youth. Not too bad, but enough to create some headaches for his aunt and uncle. Before Hobgoblin could deliver the killing blow, Itsy Bitsy arrived and warned Hobgoblin to get his butt over to Rand to kill a pair of whistleblowers who warned the Justice Department about the tainted cola. Hobgoblin agreed and left the killing to Itsy Bitsy. Fortunately, Spidey managed to defeat Itsy Bitsy pretty easily, I think, but not soon enough to stop Hobgoblin from heading over to Rand. And that brings us to Amazing Spider-Man number 5. Hobgoblin arrives at Rand Industries to kill Brian Nearing and his boss, Dr. Osmani Milton, to ensure the compound infused in Queen's Cola isn't released to the Justice Department or the public. The Rand building isn't without defenses, but the blast doors only delay the Hobgoblin from breaking in and getting his hands on the scientist. Fortunately, the defenses slow him down enough so Spider-Man can catch up and join the fight. During the battle, Spider-Man taunts Hobgoblin to get him to confirm the plans Spidey had already deduced somewhere off-panel. Hobgoblin would poison Queen's Cola with a compound that induces anxiety in anyone who drinks enough of it. Then he would sell an anti-anxiety medication to the infected, making a figurative killing in pharmaceutical profits. So basically, it's a drug scam. Spidey is now free of the hallucination because he's had enough time to let it wear off, but he's worn out from non-stop fighting over the last few days, making him an easy victim for Hobgoblin. So he's caught up to the villain, he's basically stopped him from killing the people, but he's kind of run out of gas. When it looks like Spidey's on the ropes, suddenly Brian Nearing shows up and he throws a really toxic form of mushroom he grabbed from his lab right into Hobgoblin's face. Now you're saying, oh, I thought Brian was playing with all those mushrooms and that somehow that was a foreshadowing or a hint that somehow he's involved in Hobgoblin's schemes. Apparently, no, it just happened to be a coincidence. Okay, so fine, whatever. Hobgoblin is overcome with frightening hallucinations about things like spiders and creepy crawlies all over him, and he runs off. And that's it. He's gone. That's the last we see of Hobgoblin in this arc. The issue ends with confirmation from Norman Osborn that the Hobgoblin's plan has been completely dismantled by the authorities when they show up at the cola plant. Everything has been recalled, all the soda's taken off the shelves, and Peter takes a sweet moment or two to make up with Aunt May after kind of scaring the bejesus out of her for showing up at her house all strung out. And that's the end of the issue. Final thoughts, what do you think about Amazing Spider-Man number 5? It wraps up Hobgoblin's harebrained plan with a visually spectacular battle at Rand Industries. Joe Kelly's finale to the first arc is, let's be honest, woefully underbaked and unsatisfying, partly because there are so many open questions that never get addressed. But the whole thing is offset primarily by Pepe Larraz's fantastic, spectacular art. I mean, it truly looks amazing. And I say this from the bottom of my heart. If the art wasn't as good as it is, which earns a few bonus points on the score, which is why it's as high as it is, this arc would be a complete flop and you could just throw it away. Therefore, Amazing Spider-Man number 5 from Marvel Comics earns a 5 out of 10, and that's almost entirely due to the art because everything else is just a big old shrug. But what do you think? Am I being just a little bit too picky? Or maybe I'm not being picky enough? Why don't you let me know in the comments section down below. So, thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.